Recording in progress. Okay. It's going to be a great time.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Does that sound interesting and cool?
Damn, I look so good.
Let's just wing it. You ready?
4 hours later.
Dear tech.
Sharp.
Oh, laughing hurts. Cut.
Alrighty. How's everyone doing?
Hello, Tahmid. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Fran. Nice to meet you. What are you drinking over there?
I was telling Shubho, I literally have 4 freaking beverages. I have charcoal water. I have lemon, apple cider vinegar, turmeric water. I have a smoothie,
Everything
and
tastes
I have
bad.
regular
Everything
water.
sounds like it tastes bad.
Nice. She started off with charcoal water. I was like, oh.
You know, when the
okay.
whiskey doesn't hit, you
All right.
gotta do charcoal water. Yes. So that does not look appetizing at all.
Can I start off with something? I just want to start off with something. I'm really excited. I'm really am excited. I've been keeping up. You know, I've been following you guys. Not just to support, you know, my brother over here. But you guys really are making some great content and talking about some great stuff. Like, and a lot of the stuff I relate to, you know, in my role, whatever. So like when I'm hearing you guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are gems. So appreciate you guys, seriously.
Thank you. That's so nice.
It really
That's a
is.
great
I
way to
wish to
start
send
off
letters
this
to everyone that comes
session.
on and say, you have to start with this.
Please give us
No,
compliments.
That is a great way to start. Thank you, Tahmid.
Yep.
Okay, so I actually have a very intentional way that I want to start this. And if it doesn't come out the way I want it to, I'll edit it so it does.
I'm not drinking. I'm not taking shots. I'm
No,
not drinking.
All right. So Tahmid, you and I know each other really well,
Mhm.
and so I wanted to do my best to make sure like we got the most out of it. So I'm going to start somewhere that isn't, you know, this is a tech podcast. We're going to talk about tech, of course. We all work in tech, but I think from what I know of your life, there was something that happened in your life before you even were motivated to get into tech or accelerate your career. And that was your first 10K run, and the journey up to it and the journey after it. And after, I feel like that journey is what motivated you to actually change your career. Right. Because, and you're going to tell us about what you were doing before tech and what that was like. But before we do that, can you start us off by telling us about your first 10K run and why you did that and why that's relevant to this podcast?
Okay, we're starting off hot. Okay.
Really jumping right into it.
This is a story that I love telling people. I don't mind, and when I do tell it, every time I do get emotional. I always tap into that time frame. So I want to. It's been a while since I've told because everybody knows about it. So let me see if I can try to condense it. So basically, I was overweight all my life, right? Being South Asian, our cuisine, everything, our culture is just a lot of good food, especially in this family. But that was something I battled with throughout my adolescence and teen years and whatnot, and adult years. And I just remember, like, obviously, people who battle with certain things every year, like, I'm like, okay, next year I'm gonna try to get on this and figure this out and try to lose weight, this and that. But it never worked out. I would have some goals, but I would always drop the ball some way, right? But a lot of that mentality seeped into the rest of me, like how I viewed life, how I viewed career. I didn't even think about the word career at that time when I was that young. But just everything. And I remember one year, this is in 2016. I don't know what it was. It was close to my birthday, and I was like, what have I done this year? And my birthday's in November, so it's always close to the end of the year. So I'm always kind of like around my time. I'm not only just thinking about my birthday, but also the new year coming up, and I'm like, what have I accomplished this year? And I was looking back at that time, and I was like, I didn't do anything. And I was so disappointed in myself. But I'm like at the time I was like maybe what 25, right? 25, turning 26, and I saw all my friends and family on social media doing big things, and even on LinkedIn I would see people like really killing it in their careers, and I was working. I had just got out of the call center, and I was working at another job, which I'm still grateful for. But it wasn't something I loved. But I was like, why am I here? Why do I feel like I'm not I'm really purpose driven. I've always thought that like I always feel like because I'm a funny guy, I always have intent behind things I do. Um, and I always want to make an impact. And I just felt like I wasn't making impact. I wasn't doing much. So I was like, you know what? I wanna do something that'll change me, that'll shape me, that'll be memorable. And I hated running. I still to this day I hate running. I do it for the fitness fitness part of it, but at that time being overweight and obese, it was like my enemy. But I remember I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sign up for one of those runs. I'm gonna do a 5K. And some of my coworkers were like, why are you gonna do a 5K, this and that? And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to challenge myself even more, especially because I
That's the
saw the
only reason.
medals that they
Don't
were
lie. That's
giving.
the he didn't
Shubha
like
loves
the
this.
5K medal and he liked the 10K medal. That's why he ran the 10K.
The 5K medal was like a monkey, and the 10K one was like a scorpion. So I was like, oh, that's cool. That'll be dope. So then I signed up for the
I
10K,
try to
and
talk him
as
out
soon
of
as I
it.
signed up for the 10K, immediately, yeah, people were trying to talk me out of it. People were like, Tommy, you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get hurt, this and that. People were even saying, you know what, if you're gonna do it, just walk it. I'm like, whoa, no, like, and I didn't. It's not that I like blame them for thinking that way because of how I was and my health and everything. So, but like, I was like, you know what, I take this even more as a challenge, right? People were doubting me. So I remember I signed up for it in October, right? And the race was in January, and I had never in my life switched like that. My mentality, something was different. And I ran with that. Like I changed up my diet. I went to the gym every day. I lost about 30 pounds within 3 months or from October to January. And I went there and I was just run. I ran and I remember I didn't stop. I wanted to stop, but I was running with two of my coworkers. One of them was my manager at the time, who was like my mentor. But I remember I was running with him and he was like, hey, I know you're about to give up, but we're at the last stretch. Just come on, dig deep, dig deep. And I started getting emotional. Like I drive a lot on emotion. And I remember that last stretch, and Shubho knows he's a runner. The last stretch of like any races, you have all the fans like just like on the side and they're cheering. They don't know who you are, but they're cheering for their person to come through, but they're holding signs. And I remember I took off my headphones while I'm running and I'm hearing them go crazy. And I saw the finish line and I started like tearing up and crying while I'm running. Because I was like, I knew as soon as I hit that finish line, nothing was ever going to be the same. And it wasn't. I crossed it and I like embraced one of my coworkers and I started bawling, man. I knew from that point, I was like, no one can limit my dreams or my ambitions, and including myself. And that was the main person that did do that. That was me. So yeah, it was life changing, that weight loss thing, and I've continued that. I've fluctuated here and there throughout the past years, but I think I always keep like that motivation and that ambition has only grown since then, and I'm so grateful that I even like took the opportunity to do that in 2016, and I want to get back to do that. I did that like 3 or 4 years in a row. Since COVID, it's kind of dissipated, but I
And
gotta get back to that.
I just want to clarify that
That's
I
so
wasn't trying to
cool.
doubt him. I was just
Yeah.
worried that he was gonna get hurt because 10K is a lot. It was a genuine.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I apologized.
Wait. Real question. Was Shubho at the finish line cheering you
No,
on?
No,
different
he
time
wasn't.
zones. I was in
No, he
Jersey
wasn't.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think he
No,
might
no,
have also
no,
thought that I was
no.
gonna
I
quit like the
no.
day of like, hey,
No, at
I
that point, I
slept
saw his
in.
motivation.
Sorry.
But Tom, it's so you said it at that nothing. You knew nothing was going to be the same. So let's what did that springboard you to, like the next part of your life? So because I know you kept losing weight, which is fine, but also I think that also, as you said, triggered something work wise, like career wise. So talk about what that change in lifestyle did for you the rest of your life.
Sure. Okay. I'm gonna
Think as
get
deep as
deep.
you
I
want.
hope you guys don't mind that. I'm gonna get deep.
We like getting
Uh,
deep. It's
I'm a
cool.
deep guy. I'm a deep guy. So sometimes at the wrong times. We'll be at brunch and I'll be breaking down and people are like, dude, it's brunch. It's brunch. Uh, okay. So majority of my like it's when I was a teenager and going into like, my 20s, I always saw like my dad always just like there was like a inconsistency with his career, right? There was some times where he's gotten laid off, this and that, and it's been several times where it was enough to like impact me as a young man in the family, right? Like I saw my mom bust her butt, like working. I want to say 9 to 5, like it was at Dairy Queen, right? We just came to America, but it was a lot more hours than that. And as I didn't realize it at the time when we were going through that, like how much that was actually influencing me and impacting me in not the best way. But as I grew, and especially in like my 20s, I was afraid to take chances. Even in my like late teens and my early 20s, I was afraid to take chances, especially in career. I had plenty of conversations with Shubho, and it's crazy that Shubho would even listen to that because Shubho's a huge dreamer, big ambitions and goals. So I can only imagine what he was thinking when his friend, myself, is telling him, "Hey, I just want a 9 to 5. I want to make a certain amount of years,
Tell people, tell
right?"
everyone
And it
what
was
your
like
goal,
I was thinking
what your dream income was at that point.
at the time I was like, if I make 70 to 75K a year and I have a 9 to 5, I'm cool. I'm good. And but that was where I was mentally. I was like, as long as I have a stable job, that was it. And that was me for a long time. And I was very risk adverse. I was so afraid because I'm like, if I do anything that'll risk my job and it would impact me more than like much more deeper because I'd be like, oh man, this is like bringing me back to that time that like I saw my father and whatever. And I don't know. So it's just it really for a long time it was like that. But going back to your question, once I did the 10K that first year, once I saw how much work I put in and how much I kind of surpassed even my own goals and even other people's goals, I was like, oh no, I've been looking at life from a different lens. And I might have in the first several years of my 20s out of college, whatever, I might have kind of just like done mediocre, just kind of stayed below the radar. But I'm like, okay, now it's time. Let's kick it up a notch. So yeah, I everything after that, my ambition, my drive, my hunger was so much bigger. Like I was talking about career. I was using that word career, and I never used that word before. I was always using the term job. I was like, oh, I'm looking for a new job. I'm looking for. But once I hit that next step in my life, that next chapter, I was like, I want to find my career where I'm making impact. And I think that's a word that I think all of us have kind of thrown around a lot. And I think that it's really underrated. So when I look at like a new role or I look at anything, even when I'm hiring for my team, I'm not looking at, I'm the biggest thing I'm looking for is impact. How are you going to bring impact to our culture, our team? And if I'm looking to something, if I'm looking to role, I'm not looking at the money part because the money, people will throw money at you. But I'm like, I'm trying to see how I can tap into my talents and my skill set to make impact, right? So I think so much differently uh, about like how I maneuver now. So a lot
I
because of
think
that.
that totally probably resonates with so many people. And even like coming right out of college for myself, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it was literally just like finding a job to find a job, like find a nine
Yeah.
to five. I feel like it is interesting. I'm curious to see like your thoughts on this, Tahmid and Shubho as well. I I feel like more recently I've actually been I'm always going to be career driven. Like I
Hmm.
identify with my career a lot. Like I'm always going to have a drive in the professional aspects of my life. But I
Yeah.
think during the pandemic, I actually shifted away from that mindset a little bit more because I identified so wholly with my job and my career. I think almost to a point that wasn't healthy for me. And I mean, like past episodes, Shubha and I have talked about um, the quintessential term work-life balance, which I don't like that
Yeah.
term. What term did we change to,
No. So
Shubha? Do you remember? We picked a new term. Do you remember what the term was? It was like life
I forget.
balance or something. Anyways,
Mm.
if you think of it, let me know. So it was just something that shifted for me a little bit more recently of like I'm always going to be career driven, and
Yeah.
impact is super important to me too, but it actually was shifting away from identifying so closely with my career and my job to live a more balanced life and put more like energy into things outside of my work. I don't know if
So
that's
you were on the other end of the spectrum than me. You were all about career, like that's how you identified yourself.
yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
And I like,
That's nice.
not always by any means, but like
Yeah.
what's the like if someone comes up to you, you're in a networking event or you run into someone in the store and they're like, "What do you do?" What's the first thing that you say?
When people ask me questions, I turn into like professional mode, like unnecessarily. Like someone asked me, I was at brunch, I was at brunch the other weekend with with a coworker, and he's like, "Hey, what's your what's your leadership philosophy?" And I went into serious mode. I was like, "Here's my philosophy," and I got it. It was like unnecessary, like. But honestly, if I really had to drill down, I after that, because I was like throwing out so many buzzwords and like things that like I thought people like that I thought I needed to say. But then I went back and I was like, I really was like on the drive home, I was like, I need to dilute it. Like I'm like, what is something that that I do in my role, but something that is just all about me? And I would have to say storytelling.
Mm.
That is my role. That's what I love to do. In my family, I'm like the funny guy. I'm a storyteller by nature, and with what I do in every role that I try to find, like especially in my role now as a leader, I'm like, okay, I'm building relationships, I'm trying to get alignment in our transformation and whatnot. What does that entail? And the biggest thing is storytelling, right? And everything you do, if you think about it, if in most jobs or most career paths, a lot of it, especially when you get into the leadership roles, it's a lot of it is storytelling, right? We don't really actually do the work. I don't actually do the work, but a lot of it is just me storytelling with other managers, other directors, other leaders, and seeing how I can help move the ship just forward.
You know,
So I think to
no, I was
answer your
gonna say
question,
I think it's very
yeah,
interesting
it's
because
storytelling.
to Fran's point, yesterday I was at it wasn't a networking thing. This was like a social event. It was a friend's birthday, and someone came up to me, and the first thing she asked me, she was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Is that really the first thing you want to ask me?" And I said that because to what Fran was saying, like I was also very like career driven, and COVID really did show us like there's life outside of that. But I like about Tahmid's answer with storytelling is it it's outside of work too. Like it actually does encompass Tahmid as a person. So it's when someone says, "What do you do?" and you say storytelling, I think to Fran's point, when you're moving away from that, only I identify as a career. Because, like, look, for me, I do identify with my career, but I'm also a dog dad. I'm also a podcaster. I'm also like we have so many things. So with
Yeah.
Tahmid's answer, even though he could be talking about work, but not necessarily. If you ask his family, and it's like, oh, Tahmid's a storyteller, they wouldn't even think about his job. They'd be like, oh yeah, of course, like that's what he is. And so I actually would
Yeah.
love to for myself. I would love to like I'm not going to steal storyteller from Tahmid, but I would love to have an adjective like that, right? Is it adjective? Yeah, adjective. An adjective like that to describe myself that would be actually very much encompassing. So that's very interesting. But I was going to say, Tahmid,
Yeah.
you also in the more recent years, you've had a few life changes in the last year and a half. You've also a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still very career driven, but you have a lot more life now outside of that. So I feel like you've also kind of moved
Yeah.
away from it, and we
Yeah.
can't see that. You move it closer. No, wait, you have to move it closer.
Oh, you can't
His wife,
What are you
he
trying to
got
show
married last
us?
year. Yeah,
just
his 1 year
Oh,
anniversary is coming up.
congrats! Oh,
I'm
those
Yeah,
are the
just here.
yeah,
photos
his
I
1 year
saw.
anniversary is coming
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's I think a
Congrats.
lot of people, we talked about it, but I think a lot of people after the pandemic realized like there's more to life, and you can still be driven and you can still be very career oriented, but I think even if you're working many hours a week, as long as you mentally know for yourself that there's more, I think that's like the important part.
Yeah. That's huge. 2020, I think, was a huge catalyst to all that. Like, I think before that, I think companies and organizations and all that were definitely thinking about culture and, how can we help our workforce, our people, right? But once 2020 hit and we all went home and worked from home, the lines blurred for everybody, right? And it was in the beginning. I will be honest, like I, and I've asked several other people, and they kind of feel the same way. But it was a mental
You can't. No, no.
I
We
can't.
curse
I
on
don't
this.
want to
We
curse on
cuss.
this.
We
But it was.
yeah.
And
We fucking
it was
curse
a
all the
mental
time.
mind fuck.
Oh,
you,
okay,
you
okay,
see
yeah.
how
It was a
relaxed
mental
you got,
fuck.
dude?
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
we
It was a
curse on
mind
here.
fuck.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah, it was a mind fuck because I was like I had just gotten into the new role, like my next role, and I was in the office, and a part of the office, again, people like we were so used to being in the office that yes, it was like the idea of working from home was great, right? But we didn't understand just like the mental the mental shift of going into work, right? Having those like water cooler conversations, grabbing your coffee, being able to walk over to your coworker, your team member, or another person, um, and on the floor, and just being able to have a conversation or getting a hold of them and face-to-face conversation, whether it's serious or whatever it is, it hits different. And then when you're leaving work, it was like a sense of accomplishment, right? Like you're leaving work and you're like, whew, I need a drink, I need something, whatever. And you would drive home and you would just be like decompressing. Now, or since 2020, it was like the lines blurred and people would start working longer hours, but also like you would see so many things were going on. Like their home office was either in their kitchen or in their bedroom, and it was just because no one was prepared for it. No one really had a setup. So it was just really weird. And like ever since then, I think organizations and whatnot were now like you have to think about like culture. You have to think about like a lot more than just the money, because when you're interviewing these like anybody, they're probably interviewing tens or 20 roles right within that week, or maybe, right? So our thing is just like, how do you differentiate? What are some game changers? What are some besides the money? Because now I don't think people will make a decision over money. I've been having conversations with several people where they'll say, yeah, this role is paying me more, like about 10 grand more, but this other job, I'm more flexible. I'm more this, I'm more that. I have a few people that I know that haven't left their job right now. They could be making much more money, but it's because of their either their company culture, their team culture, or their flexibility. So there's so many other things that we got to like, as leaders, as recruiters, or whatever role, as leaders of organizations, we got to take into consideration, because the money will be there for those people trying to like find a job, right? But we got to really think about not just the people that we're bringing in. How can we really like entice them to come in and like be a part of our brand, but also the people who are with us, right? We got to treat them good too. Like sometimes it's like we kind of forget those who have been with us because they're working, that we assume they appreciate it, but we got to keep that in the forefront of our minds. Like, okay, we got to keep enhancing our culture, right? Because like again, we're paying them, but they can get paid anywhere else, right? Why should they stay here?
I love that.
So
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. It's like because everything was like so unceremoniously like mushed together between personal and professional throughout the pandemic, like that was brought to the forefront of the conversation. I'm gonna put a pin in that one real quick, and so everyone can have a little bit more context around your background, Tahmid, and what you do now and how you kind of got there. Tying back to when you did the race and there was like a full mindset shift in how you view your career and like the goals you had and what you wanted to do with your life, where I know you mentioned you were at a call center. Can you take us through kind of high level career trajectory from then to now?
yeah.
No,
We're gonna get
no,
deep
and
again.
go
So
don't go too high level. Go dig deep into the shadowing part and that experience of getting into tech. So go start at the call center, but go deep into the getting into tech part, because you're not technical. Just so that people know, like you never were technical.
I was having trouble connecting my Bluetooth. So if anybody, just letting you guys know. All right. Okay. So I had just graduated from Rutgers, like for my bachelor's, and yeah, and I was living on the East Coast majority of my life. And if anybody knows the East Coast, a lot of our viewers, I'm sure, your viewers now. I'm a part of this podcast now, just letting you know. A lot of your viewers, I'm sure, are from the East Coast, right? But it just like I needed to get out of Jersey. I was like, I need something different. Again, my mentality was just like, I need something fresh. I need something new, and I want to grow. I always want to grow. But I was like, what? This is before the 10K, but I was like, you know what? My sister was already living in Arizona, and I was like, I already loved visiting Arizona. So she's like, you know what? Why don't you come out here? She was working at University of Phoenix at the time, and she was like, hey, why don't you come out here, work for University of Phoenix, and do your master's, do your MBA, and maybe you'll figure it out. I was like, all right, okay. And I applied for like a certain role. I didn't get it within the University of Phoenix, which is fine because looking back at it. But the only job that I was able to get was the call center. I was so like, I was like, not looking down on anybody that does that role, but this is where my mentality was. I thought, again, I I thought just because I had a degree that I was better than that role. I should, and I was like, I was telling my sister, I was like, I have, I got the job for the call center, but I'm not coming out for the call center job. She goes, you're coming out here for an opportunity. Just take it. And again, we'll figure it out. So I'm telling all my friends and family, oh, I got this great job at, over in Arizona, so I'm moving there, blah, blah. They're like, really? What job? I was like, oh, I'm some advisor at University of Phoenix, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh, okay. So, but I was so embarrassed to tell them that I was moving for a call center job. Because then they would have looked at me sideways, like, really, Tommy? You're moving for that? But I think that was the best thing for me. I met some great leaders during my call center times. I really learned the value of. That's where I learned the value of. I want to say impact and why behind doing anything, right? I remember again my mentality at the call center. I was the only one in there with a degree, so I thought I was better than, right? Which was wrong of me. But I remember I was every day I'd begrudgingly calling, and everyone would be like, I'm not interested, this and that, this and that, this and that. And I remember one day, still sticks out. There was this one woman who was like, hey, I don't have time to call right now. And I'm just thinking she's about to click. I'm like, okay, no worries. I'll set up a call back for another time. She goes, no. I want you guys to call me back. Can we set it up for Friday at this time? I see all my friends with degrees. They're moving forward in life, and I don't have one, and I feel stuck. I really need help, and I really do. Like, I need this call back. And it hit me. Like, it hit me. I was like, and since then, I always refer back to that. Like, so when I'm doing a role or doing anything I don't like to do, I always try to understand the why. And at that time, I was like, why I'm in the call center, I'm reaching out to people to help further them in their lives, right? And they're like, maybe not everybody feels how she felt, but I know if I can keep making those calls, I can maybe touch someone else that can, get them to the next part of their life. So anyways, I did the call center. From there, I joined workforce management, and I was doing that for about 3 or 4 years. And I was kind of dragging my feet along the way, to be transparent. I was killing it in the first year, but then I just it wasn't my passion. And I remember till this day, I'm so grateful for this individual, Nathan. Nathan's he's my mentor. He was my manager at that time, and he's kind of like he gets weird when I say father figures. I always say like an uncle. That way he feels better about it. But I remember, I remember one day I was telling him, I was like, hey man, like I can't do this, and I applied to a few other jobs, and he knew it wasn't my passion. And we had a good connection, so I was able to be transparent with him. And I told him, I was like, hey, I interviewed for this role somewhere else. I couldn't even tell you what it was, but I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna take it. And it wasn't paying that much more. I just wanted to leave because I was like, this isn't my thing. Workforce isn't my thing. It's not my passion. He's like, you know what? I know why you're leaving. I get it. Why don't you stick with me and we'll find you something, right? Because I don't think you're gonna be happy there. And at least here, I can help you. We can work on this. I said, okay. And I trusted him. I thought of him as my mentor, and I really had a lot of trust in him. And I remember I was trying to get into like project management, and we had within the office, we had a project management team that was next to our workforce team. And I asked him to see if, that leader would let me shadow. And he's like, yeah, let me look into it. That was like on a Monday. On Friday, he calls me like after work. Like it was like maybe 4 p.m. He's like, hey, I couldn't get you I reached out to the project manager leader, and she doesn't have anybody that can have you shadow them. There's a lot going on over there. However, I can get you. I spoke to someone else, and I can get you into the next Scrum Master training course on Monday, and it's Monday and Tuesday. Can you do it? I was like, I could do it, but what am I gonna tell the team? He's like, don't worry about it. I was like, are you sure they're gonna be mad? He's like, don't worry about it. Just show
And
up
this was
Monday
your
and Tuesday.
boss at the time, right? In that
This is
role?
my boss
Okay.
in that role, and I'm very grateful for him because that opened all the doors. And I remember, so I did the Scrum Master training. It was in person for 2 days. I studied every day in a Starbucks or every other day in a Starbucks for 2-3 hours. To me, I was like, this is the career. This is it. I already know it. Like, this is in tech. I was nervous about that because I wasn't technical, but Scrum Master, I was just like, I need to get this job. It was do or die for me. I was like, I think this is it. So I was studying every other day in a Starbucks, and it felt like college years, but I took it more seriously. Like it was crazy. And I remember while I was studying, I was also shadowing. Like their department, Lean Agile Services, the tech department was in the next building on the campus. So my leader at the time, he was like, hey, if you can make time 2 to 3 times a week, go shadow. So 2 to 3 times a week, I would go shadow, and I was getting my face all over there. Like people knew me. People actually I started building relationships over there. They were hiring, and I interview. I'm thinking for the past 2 to 3 months, I'm shadowing. I'm a shoo-in. I'm getting the job. And then I remember I was like, I wasn't even worried. That was the craziest part. I wasn't even worried. I was just waiting I was just thinking about negotiations at the
Yeah,
time.
he was asking me. He
I was
called me.
thinking
He
about-
was like, "What
I
should
was just-
if they offer me X? How do I get more money?"
yeah. I was like, I ain't taking less than this. I'm asking for a parking spot, all that. And then I remember I got an email saying, hey, we're moving forward with other individuals. And it hurt me. That hurt me. There's not like, I think Shubho knows this. For me, as an individual, it's not that I don't care about a lot of things. For me, I'm very much like, it is what it is. Keep it moving. I learned what I learned. And a lot of, especially at the time, when I was younger, less things affected me because like, I didn't have a lot of ambition. So when you don't have a lot of
You didn't care.
ambition,
You can say you didn't
things
care.
don't
You can
hurt
say
you
you
as
didn't
much,
care.
right? When you really
Yeah.
want something, I didn't care. I didn't care about a lot of things, right? But then, like as I was getting older and more mature, and this is something for the first time I was really wanting, um, it hurt me. It hurt me. I didn't know what to think. I started doubting myself. I'm like, I've been shadowing. I've been doing all the right things. Why didn't I get this? I called my leader, Nathan. I called Nathan, and he was like, "Listen, I know it sucks, but now we have a North Star. Let's keep working at it. Don't stop. Because if you stop now, then maybe you didn't really want it." I said, "All right, bet." So I kept shadowing, and I even reached out to the two people at the time who were kind of taking me under their wing. There were two agile coaches, and I was like, hey, I didn't get the job. It's a little unfortunate. I'm bummed, but I want to know like what's some feedback, that way I can work on it. And they were like, you know what, why don't you? We would love to take you out to lunch. I was like, what? I'd never heard of that. Like where you didn't get the job, but they still want to take you out to lunch, right? So they took me out to lunch, and they're like, hey, we did go with the hiring leader did go with someone else, but we really see a lot of potential in you. So let's keep at it. We appreciate you like the past several months really showing your personality and really coming in and trying to just dive into it. And it just meant a lot to me that they still valued me and whatnot. So I kept that fire burning. And then I want to say another 3 or 4 months later, I remember the hiring leader, the VP, he called me in his office, and at that time, I think I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I had interviewed; it was my second interview, and I was like, he's just gonna tell me to my face that he doesn't want me. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like not even hyped. I'm like lowering my expectations, and then he turns the computer, and he's like, you see all these people, the qualified people? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna have to send an email to them today to tell them I found my next Scrum Master. I was like,
Oh my
who?
God, what a heavy.
I still didn't know. I was like, who?
Who are you gonna hire? You call me and you need to
So
tell me
then-
about your new hire, someone else. Oh.
And then I was like, I couldn't tell you what that did for me. Again, the 10K was, again, I think everybody's life has different moments where it's going to change your life. This is like a milestone or something in your life where it's like, this is like a life-changing moment, right? If this is our book, this is like one of those like little tabs that you put on the page where it's like, hey, like highlight this page, right? And the 10K was the first one. right? And then I want to say this one was like the next milestone where I was like, it wasn't about the job. It was a lot bigger than that. It was, Tom, just like the 10K, you applied yourself and you have something that people see in you. You have not just a personality, but you have some skill set, whether it's tangible or intangible, you have something that can create an impact. So look, now the work actually starts. This is you wanted a career. All right, here we go. This is the start. And I was so nervous. It was in tech, and I remember my team members when I started like in workforce when I was telling them like, hey, I got a new role as a scrum master, this and that. I remember Nathan and a few other people. They're like, listen, you have so much potential to be a rock star in anything you do, but like don't squander it away, right? We know that your personality, you just like if it's not your jive, you just kind of like, all right, I'll just keep it moving, or you kind of start dragging the feet. Don't do that here, because in tech, they'll eat you alive, right? But you have the qualities, you have the superstar potential in anything. And ever since then, I've never anything I've wanted to do after that. I was like, I don't want to just do it. I don't want to just be good at it. I want to be great at it. I want to make a name that transcends like industries and all that. Like I really want to be like the Ted Lasso almost, right? Where people know me for my personality and just like my intangibles. So yeah.
That is amazing. I have two things from your story. So one, actually three. One, your
Yeah.
VP, like he could have just said you got the job. Like he's got to play out that whole thing for you.
I
Make you
swear to
sweat a
you, I
little
almost
bit.
blacked out. I almost blacked out. Like when he turned the screen, I was
Yeah.
about to flip it. I was about to be like, this.
You see all
Don't
these
do this.
good
Don't
qualified
do
candidates.
this.
You're not in
Oh
this
my
list.
god. Yeah. Jesus, that would have been fucking hard.
Yeah.
And then second, I feel like that has to have, like, just like you said, like that was such a profound moment in your life, because you shared from in the beginning, you were afraid. I don't think you used these exact words, but there was fear in taking risk because you didn't want to fail. And then you worked really hard. You failed the first time. You kept going, and then you got it. So like that win like has to like have solidified that behavior of taking the risk and doing the work. And even when you like have to take a step back or out of your own controls to take a step back, and then you keep pushing forward, and then you win.
Yeah. I actually have a question for you too. I'm flipping because I'm one of the hosts now.
Cool.
Okay. So one thing I did learn during that time, I felt like I felt like I did things out of my comfort zone, right? Like, and I started to not be afraid to ask for certain things or ask for like time to shadow or time, like for an opportunity, right? And I say this to everybody that like my mantra is closed mouths don't get fed, right? Do not be afraid to ask for things, right? Like, because you will never know whether, and that goes outside of just career. It can be relationships, it can be anything, friendships, whatever. So I want to ask you guys, like what is something that like you have asked for, like that kind of peeks out from your memory that like you are so happy that you asked for, that right now you wouldn't have what you have or certain things that you have if you didn't have the courage to ask for it. Like, I really want to know. Like,
Damn.
Yeah.
I would say like a more recent one for me is I have like so I manage a recruiting team right now across product and design, and I have very what's the word I'm looking for? I have aggressive goals in terms of where I want to go in leadership, and I want to keep moving up within the management lane. And Shubho and I both went through this leadership development program with the company last year. My perception of time is warped. And that springboarded me just being very intentional about the path I want to take and what steps I need to take to get there, and breaking it down and realizing like I am the captain of my own ship. And because I previously have very much so like taken the path in my life, in my career, of when I get to the fork in the road, I'll pick a side, but outside of that, like I'm not really steering my ship. I'm just kind of letting it float, and whatever comes comes. So now, I think it was last year, I'd reached out to my VP, who I wasn't directly reporting into, and asked him if I could get career development from him. So first we just had a very transparent conversation about my goals, what was attainable for me, like next steps within the company, without of the company. And he offered to mentor me, and I wasn't even directly reporting into him. And so even still now, I meet with him bi-weekly. I've learned a shit ton from him. Like we talked through everything. He gave me feedback on the podcast like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
So it's been like, just like you said, like for your similar experience, like asking to shadow, like something that's not even in your normal job description. And it's you just taking that initiative to learn more. That's been a big win for me.
Yeah, I think mine is a little different. So I feel like I've never been afraid to kind of ask for things. I'm a, you know, I like asking for things. But I think for me, before this role, I was and I've said this before, but it's like I was recruiting and I was like doing my thing, but I wasn't, not that I wasn't thinking about management. Like I've always wanted to be a leader. I've always tried to lead. Like it's always been something that I've always wanted to do. But when this role came up, I wasn't aware of it, obviously, but someone told me like, hey, we have this management role, you might be great for it. And my initial thought was, I'm not sure, which I killed right as soon as it, like I thought it, I was like, nope, I got it. This is my chance. This is my chance at transitioning to management. I think the way that I approached the interview would be that like closed mouths don't get fed, where like I went into it as like I'm the best candidate. I went into it as I am a manager, I'm a leader. Even though I wasn't there. As soon as I got into the interview, everyone I spoke to, I almost like spoke it as if I've already been managing. They knew I didn't. They knew I was already at the company. But that was one of those things. I think it's like the confidence part of it was showing them that like I can do this type of deal. But besides that, I don't know if there's anything specific for me because I really am someone who tries their best to ask for as much as possible. That wasn't always the case, but I think over the last few years for sure. Yeah. That was a good question. You should, I'm glad you joined the team. Yeah, right.
You should be a podcaster.
But it's funny though that you got the opportunity to become a Scrum Master, because that's a very specific role. And I feel like, when we talk about like your skills before you got into the role, you're a people person, you build relationships, that's like natural to you. And you got a role that's leadership via relationships, essentially, right? And it's very cool that that's what came. That's like, you could have been a PM, you could have been a project manager, and it would have been fine. Right. And project manager is also a relationship based, but Scrum Master is very different, right? It's a very different way to manage a project. And it's really interesting that like you got that opportunity, which basically you got paid because of the skills that you've developed yourself. Right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And going back to like that moment where that VP hired me, I was just, part of me just wanted to stroke my own ego. I was like, why? Like, why are you hiring me? Like, just, I need to know, like, right? And we had a good relationship. So I just want to like understand, like, you have so many qualified candidates. Why? I asked him right then and there, and he was like, Tom, everyone, like, and he told me, he's like, turn around. And I turned around, and it was a floor full of people, right? And he's like, all those people are techies. They're dorks. They're geeks. I have enough of them. I need someone who can talk to people. I need a people person. I will never forget that, because I took that and I ran with it. And it was weird because like in the beginning, I was like, the first week or first 2 weeks of, being a Scrum Master, I always prided myself on, I know how to communicate with anybody. I know how to get on people's levels. My personality can seep into anybody's like little shell, and I can get along with most people. Tech people, different. I hate to say it, but they're different, right? Like it's a different culture. It's a different breed of people. They're just, again, a lot of them are just heads down focused. So yeah. And like, sometimes, and my personality doesn't mix the best in this industry sometimes, right? So in the beginning I was like, ooh, maybe this wasn't the right move, because like I would be saying jokes like just to break the ice during like our retrospectives or team meetings. Nobody would laugh, and I was like, all right, don't ever say that again. All right. But then eventually, as I got into the group of things, and just like, okay, Tommy, like don't overdo it, but just be yourself and just care, right? And just try to build those relationships, and maybe they'll come along. That's what happened. Like over time, like I learned how to be a servant leader. I know that's a term that's almost getting outdated, right? But being a servant, I really learned how to paint a picture, because I'm not anybody's leader, direct leader, right, on the team. But how can I get people to buy into what I'm saying, right? So I got to really be able to paint and storytell.
There we go. Bring it
right?
back.
My mom, my whole thing, yeah. So I had to really storytell into getting people to buy into the culture I'm trying to instill on the team, the big picture of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to get done. So it was challenging, because it was a different industry, different people, but I learned the most. And as I got going, I would like to think that I got better and better, and I feel like I started creating my own brand. And brand is another thing that I
So,
am a huge
wait.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two things.
So personal
First thing
brand is
is,
everything. Yeah,
I hope
sorry.
servant leader doesn't go out of style. It's my favorite.
sorry.
Servant leadership, I think, is probably one of the most important ways to lead people, but we're not going to get into that yet. What I want to say is, your VP gives you information with like homework. It's like, do you read this list? Turn around, look at all these people. It's like, bro, just tell me, just talk to me, because I'm getting anxiety. I'm like, he's over here like making you do things. It's like, you want the answer to this question? Do 5 jumping jacks, run a lap, come back, and then I'll tell you the answer.
That VP was one of the hardest people to read. He was Australian, and he just had like it was surface level but also deep. Like, but it was just hard to read. I really pride myself on being able to read the situation and read people. He was so difficult to read. But like through time, our relationship really grew. I still keep in contact with him. I texted him the other day. He's one of those guys who, if he could, he would give you the shirt off his back. Really, really appreciate him, and I will forever like be so appreciative of a person who gave me an opportunity. I think that it's very seldom sometimes where individuals rather lean towards people who have had the expertise, had the experience, have the skill sets on paper, right? But for people, and almost now that I'm thinking about it, almost every hiring leader has hired me based on potential. Based on potential. I've almost never been qualified on paper for something. When I got, I think the only thing that was overqualified for was the call center, and I couldn't even do that right. But it's just like when I was doing workforce, I've never done workforce, and I never did analytical jobs or anything. So they hired me based on potential and my personality, and then Scrum Master, and then my leadership role that I'm in now. Like, it's all because like people are willing to take a chance on me and the personal brand that I built. So yeah, very much appreciate them.
Were all of those situations, from a recruiting perspective, it's always so interesting assessing people based on potential, because it's like, how do you actually assess for that? For all of those scenarios and situations where you feel like that has been the case for you and you have been hired based on potential and brand, what did you already, was it companies where you were already working at and you were able to build rapport, or was it coming from the outside and you had connections? Or like, how, I'm curious, like how you feel like those interviewers and those hiring managers were able to assess you for potential.
That's a really good question.
I can answer that.
So like, yeah.
No, I'm not gonna answer your question.
You want to answer?
I'm not gonna do that.
Both. I want to say when I was like working at workforce and then transitioning to the Scrum Master role, it was in the same company, right? So, but like I didn't have any connections with the tech department. Never did. Yeah. So me shadowing was like the biggest thing that helped me. But I think that like, again, my personality, it really did help a lot. But when they gave me the opportunity based on potential, I knew that if they gave me the opportunity, if they held the door for me, someone who may have not been the most qualified, and they had a bunch of other candidates. I had to run with that opportunity, and I want to make that person proud and be like, and I text my VP even now, and the former VP, and I'll be like, was that the best hire that you've ever had? He's like, Tahmid, he texted me this, and I almost brought a tear to my eye. He's like, Tahmid, like, you enhanced my career. Like, I appreciate you. I didn't take a chance on you. I already knew that you, yeah. Like, so he always just like he always just made sure that like my my ego was stroked and made sure that my confidence was high. But then in this new place, this new firm that I work in now, so I start off as a Scrum Master, and then it was my performance, and it was also the brand that I built of consistency and whatnot. That's what got me to the next opportunity as a team leader now. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a mix of both. Again, me transitioning from Scrum Master to leader within the same firm, I didn't have any connections with the other leaders. I didn't have it, and I was new still. I was still new to the firm, so it's not like I had a bunch of connections. I was about 7 or 8 months in, and then I took the chance. And they had to get my manager's approval for me to interview because it was less than a year. But that's how much I believe in myself. That's how much my own leader was even like, Tahmid, I think if you apply for it, they're gonna ask me for my special approval. I'll give it. I think that I think you got what it takes if you have the opportunity. If they gave you the opportunity, so yeah, it was a little bit of mix of both. It was a little bit of like some people helped kind of open the door a little bit, but it was definitely just like my own personal brand that I think that really helped me get through.
No, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
for sure.
And I
That's
think
awesome.
that's another thing about the importance of personal brand, because even being at a new company, being someone who makes yourself makes people aware of your existence, right? Because some people, you get to a new company, you don't want to shake the boat too much, you just do your job and everything. But and it's Fran, we had a thing earlier, a recording earlier where we talked about self-advocacy, and I think that's a big one, right? Where you have to show people what you can do, especially at a new company, right? Especially when you get somewhere new, you don't want to just do the minimum or just you like, for lack of a better word, be loud, right? Like, do good things and be loud about it. So no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you actually tell us, for people, from you not coming from a tech background, how did you thrive after you got the job? So you said you ran with it, but like after you got, how did you shine at that company while the years that you were there after you became a Scrum Master, not being technical, aside from, you said, right, like the personality clashes, but like also, when people are talking about, JavaScript and C++ and you don't know any of that stuff, what did you do to be able to be successful in tech without having any, because you didn't know anything about, and as your friend, I can tell you, like, I can say this like out loud, he didn't know shit about tech. Like, it's not even a joke. But
Easy.
no, because for me, like, at that time I was already like tech recruiting, so I feel, and like I had worked a little bit in tech, but I knew what he was getting himself into. And again, I will say, this time I didn't tell him not to do it. I was like, do it, just study hard. But for the people that are listening that may want a career in tech, that weren't in tech, that want to transition into tech, what did you do to make yourself? Because right now you're heavy in tech, right? You've been in tech for the past, like 4 or 5 years now. And this is the industry you're sticking to from what you've told me. So what did you do to shine in that role at University of Phoenix, those 2 years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think like in the beginning, I was trying to absorb as much as I could. So I was very insecure. So when they were talking, because all my other peers, all my other Scrum Masters at that time, they were from a tech background, right? But so in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person in tech in this building that doesn't know that doesn't know jack shit. And I was just so like, when they were talking, when the team was talking, everything was going over my head. I don't know another, like, that had to be one of the most intimidating moments or times of my life where I was just like, they're speaking, I'm in a leadership role, if you will, on a team, and I don't know what the hell they're saying, right? Everything's about APIs, microservices, spikes, stories, all that stuff. Like, I was like, what are you talking about? But then I think, but then my VP and also my leader, both of them did not quit in stroking my ego, but also keeping my confidence high. It's almost like sports. Like when you have a star player and you know you have a star player, you want to keep the confidence high, right? So that's what it was. They were like, Tom, we're not asking you to build something. We're not asking you to know these things. That'll come. You're drinking from a fire hydrant. Which your role is a scrum master, leading them through the agile framework, right? So I knew the agile framework. I remember I told you guys I was at Starbucks every other day, right, studying. I knew the agile framework. It was just applying it to what we were doing. So I was like, you know what? If all else fails, lean on that. But also, I got really comfortable with playing the, hey guys, I'm the dumbest guy here. Why don't you break this down to me, right? And very quickly I realized that a lot of the team members and everybody like in tech, sometimes you get so tech that it's an impediment to yourself, right? Like you are so granular and you're talking like a certain way that the tech jargon, it goes over a lot of people's heads, right? And I realized that this isn't what my role is to really empower the team, and the knowledge will come. Like, yes, since then I've gotten more knowledge. I've done more learning since then. Things do make a lot more sense to me now. I'm not still the most tech person, right? But a lot of the leadership roles within tech, they have a certain amount of knowledge, but they let the experts lead, right? They let them lead. So for me, I got comfortable with they're experts in their lane. I'm the expert of my lane. Now let's work together, right? So it took a lot of time for me to get comfortable with that. It took a lot of like, I would ask a lot of dumb questions. I would ask a lot of, what does this mean? What is it? I'd even like on my spare time, I'd be like, hey, developer, can I sit with you? Right? It was back to the shadowing days. And I am not afraid of that. I was sitting right next to him and be like, talk me through this. What does this mean? And it would take 1, 2, sometimes 3 sessions. And sometimes I would even get it, but I think I also earn my team members' respect that, hey, this guy, like, he doesn't need to know tech, but he's willing to sit with me and learn or try to learn, right? And things got easier at the time, but I think just really just knowing that what my role is to be a coach, a team coach, right? And just talking agile to them. So yeah, I think I was trying to be bigger. I was trying to do more than I should. And that's what made me more
I
intimidated.
think
but,
you said a
I think
gem,
that's what
not just for tech or for Scrum Masters. I think for leadership as a whole, I think you said a gem that you let the experts lead in their field. Where I think Simon Sinek says this thing where he says, as a leader, you're not responsible for the results. You're responsible for the people that are responsible for the results. And I think whether it's tech or anything, when you're a leader, if like if you try to do everything, right, then you're not leading. Or if you're like, physically doing all the things, the difference is letting the experts lead. So I thought that was really cool. But no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think too, like, so many people can relate to stepping into new environments. And when you take on a new role, like, you don't know the environment at all, whether it's functionally or solely just the environment, and people come in and have, what's the term?
You got to give me some more words.
Where are you?
you got to give me some more words.
You go into a room and you
Okay.
imposter syndrome.
He's like, you go into a room and you forget why you went in there. That's what happens to me.
Like you have imposter syndrome, so you feel like you want to know what you're talking about and be an expert, and you feel like, oh shit, like, am I worthy of this space? Am I supposed to be here? And I think embracing, like, knowing that you're not going to be an expert, and like just what Shubho said, tying the leadership aspect as well too, like that's not what you're there for, and also giving yourself grace that like any new environment you come into, like you're never going to know everything right off the bat, especially in that kind of fire hose structure. So I think that, I'm sure that resonates with so many people.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Continue. Okay.
I was gonna go on a different tangent, so you go.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say that, like, I am completely and utterly grateful for the people who have continued to have my back, though. Like, I can't, like, people took chances on me. That's one thing, right? But the next part of it was people still, like, again, I related to sports, to have a coach, have a leader to be like, hey, don't worry, keep shooting. Hey, don't worry, keep running. You're good. It's not very often where people feel empowered to make mistakes, people feel powered, especially in a new role where you don't know what you're doing or you haven't had the experience. You are so afraid to fail. So having leaders to be like, no, we hired you for a reason. No, you're here for a reason. You're good. You're good. I would hear that almost every other week. You're good. I promise you that helped me so much. So I really will say like having leaders, that's why leadership is has so much more weight nowadays than it used to, right? Before
Mm-hmm.
people used to say my boss, this and that, this and that. I try to make it an intentful thing. When I talk about certain individuals, I will say, oh, that's my leader. That's my leader. I have a great leader right now, right? But like when someone is really bought in and is behind you and invested in you and your growth, I think it really, I think you should, as a person, you should also realize the support system that you have, right? Because it's not very often that people will be like, hey, you fell. I'm here to pick you back up. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Don't be afraid to fail because a lot of people, that'll stunt people's growth because maybe you do get hired for potential. But if the environment isn't set where, especially your leadership, isn't making you feel like okay for making some mistakes and learning from them and this and that, you're gonna be afraid to fail. But
Mm-hmm.
I think failing is like one of the it's not one of the it's one of the best things, right? Because when we all
Yeah,
talk about
you learn
stories,
so much.
storytelling, right? when we're all talking about stories, and me especially, when I talk about stories, I'm talking about my it's those moments where I'm embarrassed at the moment, like when it happens to me. But I talk about those negative times, and I look back at it. I'm like, I learned the most from them. So they make the best stories, and uh, yeah,
Yeah, I think still so many articles and like statistics show your direct manager is the number one reason why people stay or leave jobs. And obviously from all the stories you shared, like it's such a profound impact on not only your career, but your life and your
yeah,
mentality and how you win, how you fail, all of those things.
yeah.
Um, what obviously having, it sounds like having such a profound experience in your career at in that time at that role, what led you to moving into your new company and taking that next step in your career?
Why'd you quit, Tahmid?
Okay. Um, so I thought that I had built a brand that was like pretty big, and I thought that I was doing really, really well. And at the time, I just felt like there was several reasons that I don't want to get into too much, but the biggest thing I guess was like, you know what? I wanted to, I wanted to get, I wanted to get paid. I wanted that payday, right? So, um, I just thought that, but it was more so like, I want to say it was more so the ego factor. I would, I'm like, I'm one of the best here. I think I
Wait,
should get paid accordingly, right?
as you
So,
say that, I wanna
um,
because hang on, I want to preface this by saying, I'm gonna defend Tahmid a little bit because I
okay,
need to. Um, at this point, he'd been working in this new role because it sounds like because if we continue this way, it sounds like you became a Scrum Master and you're like, I'm the best one here. So you became a Scrum Master. You work there, right? Because
possibly.
he's at University of Phoenix. He became a Scrum Master. He worked there for a period of time. He was doing really well. He built himself up to become one of the best ones there. Yeah, because at that point, but it literally sounds like
In
Tom's
my
like, yeah, I
opinion, in
got
my
the
opinion,
job, and then I was the best, so I left. No, he
and I
worked
left.
there for a while, built a really big brand, and okay, now
Yeah,
continue your story.
yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Um, so I just was like, I thought I was one of the best, so I wanted to get paid. But it was more so like, tell me that I'm one of the best. It was basically my way of being like, tell me that I'm one of the best, right? But for certain reasons, it couldn't happen, right? The numbers couldn't add up for me. So and I knew what the market was, and I knew that based on the market, I wasn't there. So I tested I tested my free agency, if you will, or restricted free agency. And I just was, I gave a couple interviews, or gave several interviews, and it was great practice for me. And when I spoke to the current place, I gave an interview, and when I was doing the interview, they were asking me questions, and while I didn't even go into it like I usually study before an interview, like, okay, what if they ask me this? I went in there, I'm like, you know what, like, don't fret. Don't get too nervous. Don't overthink it. And I went in there and everything they were asking me, it was easy to me because I knew it. So they offered me the job, and I didn't per se want to leave University of Phoenix. I've been there for like I was there for I want to say 8 years or so, right? And I went from call center to Scrum Master. So I just felt like I had so much stock in there. Like I just felt like I was there, right? And there was a lot of memories there. So I was like, part of me was like nervous, but a part of me was like, Tom, this is a growth moment, right? This is another chapter to really test out if you're good enough, because they were willing to pay me what I wanted. But I was like, okay, if they're willing to pay me what I wanted, let's really test out how good I am. So I took my talents to the firm, and that's literally what they call it,
It's
the firm.
I can say the company's
And
name, right? It's on your LinkedIn, right? Yeah, Edward Jones.
you
But
can say that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how Tom made it sound like he's LeBron James. I took my talents
Oh.
to the firm. It's like, all right, LeBron. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what was the biggest thing. I was like, I really wanted to test out. If I thought I was that good, let's really test it out. So I got paid for it, but now it's really time to put it, uh, into practice. And we're there in the middle. So Edward Jones was in the middle. We're still in the transformation, but they were very early on, much earlier than University of Phoenix. And I just felt like I like my knowledge and my skill set. It helped me a lot. Like they were like looking at me. A lot of individuals were initially were looking at me like, wow, this guy has a lot of knowledges in Agile. He knows what this, that, and the third is. So it was just it was really cool. It was a really cool experience to come in and feel like, okay, I can help create change. I can help create impact, and that's what I did. So and that's what helped with my brand, which got me to this next step.
That's awesome. And I think it's like, I think your reasons for, like, I can relate to them personally for sure in terms of getting paid what you feel like you're worth. I'm curious to like hear your thoughts on this, but I think this view changes based on generation. So like my dad, for example, worked for the same company his entire life, basically for like 50 years plus at the same company. And that was viewed as an aspect of pride and company loyalty. And like that was such an awesome accomplishment. And it is. I think like the millennial generation and younger, I think mindset has shifted less, because I think previously it was like company loyalty was held over personal achievement in a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled with this over my career a little bit too, of holding company loyalty and feeling guilty for looking elsewhere, wanting to interview or wanting to leave. But I am 100% a proponent now. Like I am very much so big on loyalty, but for me, it's, I think because of the size of the companies I worked at, and like the companies you've worked at are of scale as well. I'm more so like hold my loyalty to the people, like my like direct circle and the people that have impacted me in my career and the people I work with, rather than the name in a lot of situations. Because at the end of the day, unless you work for a nonprofit, these are for-profit businesses. Like the business is for profit. The individuals at the top of the food chain making decisions like likely don't know me from Jack and Jill. Like they're going to make decisions that are best for the business. Just as you, Tahmid, you, Shubho, like I should make decisions that are best for me. And if that doesn't always align, like that's cool. That's great. Like I 100% will never, any employee that ever works for me or I work with or person I work in my network, if you take a job or get an offer for something that like pays significantly more, it's going to be a better move for your family. Like I 100, like take it. Like, so my mindset has shifted. And I'm curious, like your thoughts on that of, yes, I think loyalty is a really good quality to have, but I don't think your loyalty to anyone or anything else should ever outweigh your loyalty to yourself and your own goals and your own mission. Thoughts?
Oh no, Tahmid, you first.
Tahmid, what do you think? Does that land? Like,
oh, so yeah, absolutely. That resonates because I've always, just like you, I was very much like, there's something alluring about, being at a company for so long, right? And just like building relationships and all that, your
seeing the
network.
fruits of your labor.
Yeah, and also the brand, right? Like your brand speaks volumes, and they're like, oh, this like Edward Jones. There's a lot of people who've been here for 20, 30 years. Like a lot of the workforce, a lot of the people that work here have been here for 20 or 30 years. Like I thought at University of Phoenix that people who were there for like 10, 15 years, that was a lot. Oh my goodness. Edward Jones, people have been here since like the 80s or something. Like it's crazy. Um, or maybe even before that too. But as of recently, I have kind of transitioned into it's a little bit of balance, right? Life is all about balance. So I do love the loyalty. I do love like staying here and thinking about, okay, how can I make the impact? How can I help with this organization, this culture, anything? Um, but then like with Sony, I've had obviously with this new age, I've asked several people, and I'm like, hey, like, are you about are you about loyalty? I've asked that same question, and they're like, no, no, I gotta look out for myself. And I think that's seeped into my brain now, where it's like, I want as much as because I know I go into work every day and I try my best to take care of my people. I try my best to take care of my team, my leadership team. I try my best to uphold our brand and our culture. I want the same respect anywhere I am. I want them to treat me the same way. I want them to take care of me the same way and have that same intent, right? I want that. So I want to say, like, if I don't feel like I get that, like, that is something that anybody would take into consideration. Well, I'm not getting that respect. I feel like I gotta again, my life has changed. I'm married now, right? I'm married, so I, right? Yeah. So I need to think about not just myself, but my wife and our future family and what's best for us. So, sometimes it is what it is. That's the best way I can say it. Like, if I can, and if the opportunities present itself within the place that I'm at, awesome. I'll take it. But sometimes it's a mix of what's best for yourself, what's best for your family, and also what's sometimes you just need a fresh start, right? Sometimes your company will give you consistent opportunities, but maybe you just need a fresh start, right? Maybe you need a learning growth, because I think that's what happened to me at University of Phoenix, that I was I needed a fresh start. I've been there for a long time, and I was like, what, maybe this is my opportunity to really put myself out there, and just really test out my skills and test out my knowledge and this and so forth. So I have transitioned into more in the middle now, because before I was all about
Mm-hmm.
loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think I'm more in the middle, whereas in, hey, I want to see what I can do here, and when things go left or right, then I'll address it. Sometimes, yeah, game planning your future is part of it, right? But I like to just kind of I have like a yeah, I like to game plan as much as I can, but I'm never like, oh, by this date or by this time I'm leaving, whatever, right? I want to see preferably what opportunities I can get here or there, and then just when certain opportunities present itself, then I'll probably think about it. But yeah, so more so in the middle to
I
answer
think
your
the
question.
biggest thing about
Awesome.
loyalty is
Thank
that it's a
Yeah,
two-way street, and I think the reason things have changed is because
two ways.
like no one believes in today's day and age that, or okay, take that back. I feel like the reason people leave is because they also know that companies will let you go or lay you off whenever they need to, and so they're like, why wouldn't I do that when it's right for me and do it at the whim of the company, right? So I think that's because when
Mhm.
over the past few years, companies stepped away from pensions. Companies, after the 80s started doing layoffs for the sake of, hey, we have a target financially, that's why we're doing layoffs, not that the company won't run, but we said we're going to hit X financial targets, so this is why we need to do it. So I think once that started happening, why would people not look out for themselves? Because it's like you leave in 5 years on your own whim,
Yeah.
or you get laid off at year 8 or year 9. So it's like that's what it comes down to, and I think that's what makes it. I don't want to say makes it. I think it's okay regardless. I don't think you need anything to make it okay, but I think that's one thing where if a company's like, oh, like there's no loyalty left in the workforce, which that hasn't been said recently, but I think there was an article about it a few years ago, and it's just like, well, there's no loyalty on the other side. It's the same. It's essentially the same, and so
Yeah.
it is about loyalty. I think it's never changed about being loyalty, but I think now people just see that it's a two-way street.
Yeah. And just to add on that, like there have been, especially at my current place of employment, there have been so many so many people, 20, 30. sometimes I want to say 40 years was like the craziest that I heard, but there's so many people that stay because of, I think that like my firm really does a good job. They're putting even more intent now to really see how can we not just bring in talent, how can we keep talent, right? So I really think that like that's helping the brand even more. I think that's helping with just the culture. So that's what I'm excited about, to see all these people stay for this long. And I'm slowly seeing why. I'm still fairly. I'm about 2 years. I think I just celebrated my 2 year anniversary at Edward Jones like recently. So thank you,
Congrats.
thank you. So yeah. So I'm still fairly new. People looking at me like a baby at Edward Jones, but I am slowly seeing why like people are staying for so long, right? And I'm excited to be a part of like this brand, this firm, and see what I can do to, again, you're right, Shubho, you're right, Fran. Like company loyalty is huge. So like they can cut you at any time, right? They can cut me at any time. But as long as they continue to show me that loyalty and that like that excitement towards me, I love doing the same towards them and stuff like that. So yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell us about your transition from the progression in your roles at your current company. You're a Scrum Master 2, and then now you're in leading a team. What was that transition? What does your role entail?
Yeah. So I was looking for the next step in my career. So I was like, impact, right? How do I create impact? That's my biggest thing. So I was like, I love being a Scrum Master, but I think the next step that I need to take is really leading. I feel like that's something that's always again allured me. Like I sports is huge for me, and I have a lot of very great leadership figures around me, like whether it's mentors or family, friends. I see a lot of individuals in it, and it really motivates me. So when that opportunity presented itself, I was like, I want to. I've never had actual formal leadership experience, but I feel like I've had moments in my career or in roles in my career that have entailed leadership, right? So I took it, I took a chance, and I didn't think that I would really get it per se, but I thought that if I did get the opportunity, that I'd be all right at it. I had to take like a whole formal test. I had to get special approval from my leader at the time, who I actually work with on a daily basis now, which is pretty cool. But I had to take a formal simulation test, which was a 2 or 3 hour simulation test. In my mind, I bombed it. I thought I bombed
What was
it.
that test like? What was the simulation test? How's it structured?
Basically, the simulation test was it's done through a third party, and you start the first day on the job as a CEO or director at this make believe company. And it's the first day, things are hectic, things are going fire. Your email, they give you like this whole simulation thing where like you have an email and all that stuff, and your email is blown up, this and that, and you just gotta get through it. Like you gotta like address certain things, this and that, whatever. And in there, you also have like there's paid actors. So 3 times during that simulation, once every hour or once every 2 hours, I forget, a paid actor would call you and pretend that they were like one of the
Like live?
actors, and
It's not
live.
recorded?
So they would call me on my phone, and they would play hey, I'm John Doe. I'm director of finances of the company. I'm going through this with your employee. What do you say? And I've never had formal leadership experience. I was like, so like,
Hey man, call
one or
my
two of
boss,
them I
dude.
answered
I had a
fine, but the
long
other one-
day. Hey man.
No,
Sorry, I don't take
I don't
spam
got time
calls.
for this, man. I gotta go to lunch.
So like in the beginning of the simulation, I was doing fine. I was like pacing myself and I was doing fine. But then what they do is they speed it up. So your email starts getting bombarded. So I'm trying to tackle all the tasks. I get a phone call and I'm like, oh shit. I get the phone call, and it's the third phone call. It's the final one. And it's a situation, but
All
I
the
had to
emails.
read before the call. I had to read something to prep me for the call. I had no idea what was going on. So the actor was like, "Oh, your person is doing this, blah blah blah," and she was being really vague about it. So I had no idea what. So I said, so it's literally like, there's no actual answer. It's very much like, how are you going to deal with this
That's
situation,
what I
right?
was wondering. Like,
it's
are they
yeah.
Are they expecting a set response from you, or how do they evaluate your response?
I don't know how they evaluate. I think they just gauge about your thought process, your
Yeah.
solution thinking, all that stuff. So But that one I know I for sure bombed because she told me, the third actor told me, this is the situation, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, this is what I want you to do, okay? I'm gonna set up a meeting with you on Monday and we're gonna talk through this together, okay? And the actor literally, and the actor, usually you're just like talking through it, but I had
Oh,
no
no.
idea. And the actor literally almost broke character. They were like,
No,
Oh,
the actor
okay.
gave up. Like,
no.
listen,
Like,
dude,
the
this
actor
ain't
was
for
like,
you.
what?
This ain't for you. Don't listen, baby. Don't do this again. Don't do this again.
And- yeah, but I didn't get to finish the
No, I
simulation.
think
Like,
you
I
are.
don't
I
think
think
you're
they
able
just
to
heard
finish
the
the
answer. They were
simulation
like,
because
listen, this guy,
no,
no more,
I
no
think you
more.
can. I don't want to talk about it. But then there was a follow-up person who called me after the simulation from the third-party vendor, and he asked me some follow-up questions.
I'm sorry.
There was one question he
I'm
asked me.
sorry.
I asked him to repeat it. Hold on. I asked him to repeat it. It made less sense when he repeated it.
Oh.
Oh,
And then
no.
and then I
Oh,
answered it.
no.
I answered it, and he goes, I don't think you understood the
No,
question. I
I'm
said, no,
laughing. The reason I'm
Oh,
I
laughing is
swear to
I know
God.
Tahmid, and I
I
know what
swear to
happens
God.
when he gets like flustered. So I'm literally picturing him just sweating.
Oh my
Oh, I
God.
don't think you understood the
It was
question.
so bad. But but besides the simulation, I also had like a actual interview with the hiring team.
Oh, wait, you
And I think that
you got
also
the job
spoke some
after that?
volumes. They asked me some questions. No, so no, I had the simulation
Okay.
and I had to
Oh.
do an interview with the
Do you think
hiring
there's
lead.
people
Yeah,
out
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Do you think there's people out there that do the
I know.
simulation and they
I
don't
was
need to talk to the
I'm
hiring
not
lead
gonna
because
lie.
they actually get it right? I don't know, man. That's
Right. But no, they were asking me a lot of like leadership questions, like leadership philosophies, or how would you handle this and that, and I just answered truthfully. And they took a chance on me. I built a brand, and I think my leader at the time, she wasn't on the panel, but the hiring leader, who's now my leader, she reported to her, so she was telling her some good stuff about me. So, and I was doing some other extra tasks during my Scrum Master time, where it kind of helped put me out there. Where people started, like I volunteered for like an RTE role to just be a volunteer RTE for like a PI, the PI planning for 2 days. I just volunteered. I was like, it's an opportunity. Let me try it. I did so well that the person I was working with wrote a whole email, CC'd me, but then sent it to my department leader, who's now my leader, and was saying Tahmid was so amazing, did this, did that, that the stakeholders that he was speaking to were requesting him back for the next PI. And I'm like, wow, like that meant so much. And she didn't need to write that email or anything, but I appreciate it's those moments, it's those people that really go out of their way to like help give you a stepping stone, right? And I
Mhm.
think that was so helpful. So I think that helped, and I got the role, and I was so surprised. But at the same time, I was like, not. 'Cause I was like,
I'm him.
I'm.
I'm him.
I think I got what it takes. Like, yeah, I'm him, right? Yeah. So yeah. That was a transition, and in the beginning, it was a little nerve wracking, but I always look back and I'm like, dude, I was able to get the Scrum Master role at my last employer. I was drinking from a fire hydrant. I was so intimidated my first week or 2 weeks on the job, or first month, if you will, that everything else, I'm like, I got what it takes. I have the potential. Just tap into it. It'll take time to get in the groove, but just tap into it. Like even like simple things like one-on-ones. Oh my goodness. And people who are older than me. You know how like that was intimidating in the beginning, right? Like, but then I just realized that they hired me for a reason. I have some skill sets. My team right now is ironically RTEs, agile coaches, project leaders, and scrum masters, predominantly scrum masters. So I speak their language. I was there. So even though I might be either same age, maybe older than a few or younger than a few, they still value my opinion because I was in the trenches with them. I got some battle scars, and when I'm talking to them, I'm relating to them, and yeah, I think it helps a lot. But I also think that like my values on leadership also help a lot too, right? Sometimes it's not about Scrum. Maybe it's just about how to go through a situation, or how to speak, or how to communicate with different audiences, or whatever. I think that like my leadership intangibles that I may have, I think it does help as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that Shubho, I forget the saying you said before, but I think so often as a leader, yeah, it's like I think it's a really important skill to be understand just because like you're leading a team doesn't necessarily mean you're like the expert in that skill. That's like the quality of leading and removing roadblocks and lifting people up and developing people. It's like humbling yourself. And
Servant
Shubha, what
leader.
was the term you used? Do you remember?
I don't remember which. I'm sorry. I
No.
say a lot of
My
cool
memory
things.
shit today. Sorry.
No, but I think to what both of you are saying, and Tom had brought up Ted Lasso way before, so I'm gonna use Ted Lasso as an example. Mind you, it is a fictional show, but with that being said, I love the show because the only thing Ted Lasso brings to the team is who he is and his philosophy. He doesn't know
Great
shit
personality.
about soccer, football. He doesn't know anything about it.
Shit.
He just surrounds himself with people, his coaching staff who know soccer, and then he just brings in, and that's what leadership has become. And that's the thing. When I look at Tom, you talked about having people on your team older than you, and I've had that. What we realize today, and the shift that's happening over the past few years, is understanding that leadership itself is a skill. Right. And so it doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
If you're a good leader, you're a good leader. And the thing is, you can have 50 years of experience, but you could be a shitty leader. Right. And I've had that. I've had bosses that were and it happens a lot in actual like sales teams or something. It's like he was the best salesperson. He had, millions of dollars billing. And I hope he doesn't hear. Well, I didn't say names, but shit leader. Right. Like and I, at the end of the day, it comes down to you can do the job, and maybe that's what you should do, but leadership is different because there are people out there. Actually, if you look at a lot of coaches in sports, most of them actually never played the sport past a certain point, but even if they did, they weren't like Michael Jordan's wasn't a great coach. Actually, if you see him as his front office record, it's not awesome. And if you look at like even the coaches today, like Steve Kerr is actually a bomb example. Okay. Steve Kerr was on Michael Jordan's team. Steve Kerr, if you look at he was an okay player. He has some really good timed shots, but he wasn't Michael Jordan. He wasn't Scottie Pippen. He wasn't even Dennis Rodman, right? He was the fifth guy, maybe sometimes the sixth guy, but he came into it and coaching was different. Coaching is a different skill set. So, with that being said, when you said, you have people that are older than you, they might have the experience in Scrum, in project management, whatever it may be, but leadership is a different game, and they need you to guide them from that perspective. And that's the beauty of, I think, the time we live in today, because I very much think in the 90s, in the 80s, it wasn't about, like, leadership wasn't a skill. It's like, oh, you've been here for 20 years, you should be a director. Oh, you've been here for 20 years. That's it.
How the track
and
was.
Today, the thought process of is even in IT, even in IT, if you look at it, there are people that are going to be architects, principal architects. That's an IC role, right? And that same person can have a mirror person that's a team leader, that's a director, right? Or that's senior director, or even a VP. Some principal or some architects could be at that level as well, but their skill set is in the IC, in the doing, right? So I think if we can continue as a culture in tech to differentiate that and appreciate that, that's the secret. Because the difference was, if you looked at at companies back in the day, if someone wasn't going to want to go into leadership, well, then they were just going to be like a developer, and they were going to be a very senior developer, right?
There was no career
and you were
track
stuck,
past
and you
that
weren't going to
point.
make more, and you weren't going. And now, and it's so sad, because those are the people today that you see them at that next level where they actually are managing, but it's different. They don't have direct reports, but they're still influencing, they're still mentoring, and the growth factors there. So I think, when it comes to leadership, I think Ted Lasso, even though it's fictional, I love it because it shows over the 3 seasons, you see, like, he goes from, oh, like, I'm learning about football, to being like, no, like, it really is about culture. And then he just understands what's important in the culture. So anyway.
Yeah. One thing about the Ted Lasso thing, he is himself, and I think also is the only thing that he stands on, or that he brings to, is his beliefs and pillars that he believes in, which translate into leadership, right? So I think the two things that will make people leaders and not people managers, like the differentiator, is to be, I think, a solid leader is having foundations or pillars that you naturally believe in, right? That you naturally believe in. Like I've spoken to Shubho, I've gone to like I've obviously built a brotherhood with Shubho, and I know there are certain things he believes in, right? That make him a great leader. I also think that along with having those pillars as a person, um, I think you also need to always be open to learning. And I know that sounds so simple, but for leaders, especially people who have been in an industry or their role for a long time, when you're in that role or you're in leadership, sometimes you continue on that trajectory, but you start plateauing or stagnating, and you build those bad habits. Sometimes I am who I am, or I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm getting roles, I'm getting like promotions, this and that. But a lot of times, what makes a great leader is really just always open to like adding something new to your tool belt, right? Like knowing that like every person you meet, every person that comes onto your team is going to bring a different thing. So just always open to be learning, because sometimes again, like younger leaders are are it's alluring because they're fresh, right? And it might be intimidating for those individuals, but you also got to learn that you don't have any bad habits yet. Hopefully not, right? But I think that's such a great quality of like, and not saying that all people who have been in leadership for so long have a lot of bad habits or anything, but it's just when you come into something. When I came to this leadership role, yes, I was doing some sort of leadership with Scrum, but like I didn't have a chance yet to have any bad habits. And I was like, you know what? I'm fresh into this right now. I don't want to build any. So I'm constantly asking for feedback. I'm constantly asking. And I think that's just my personality too. Like, I don't like knowing that I'm like making certain like people uncomfortable or forcing certain things to happen, whatever. So I'm always just wanting to, okay, I'm bringing my pillars, I'm bringing my beliefs, but I'm always open to, hey, if I'm not doing something right, how can I make it better, right? So I think those are two things amongst many, but two things that I think that really help individuals go into leadership and even propel them.
Yeah, asking questions is huge. I
Totally,
think
that makes
that's
sense.
probably the biggest thing. That's if anyone's missing, is like because so when I
Yeah.
was interviewing for this role, someone asked me like, what would you do? What changes would you do, or what would you do when you as soon as you get here? I was like, I don't know. I have to ask everyone like what the situation is, right? Like because some leaders get into a new organization and they just start making changes based on what they think is right. I think the biggest thing is coming in. It's like, let's do an audit of what's working, what's not working, where are we at, and make incremental changes rather than this is what I'm used to. So this is what anyway. But so I think feedback, questions, learning is huge. I also think everyone, and I think no matter what, and I'm not speaking evil on you, Tahmid, but I think at some point, no matter what, you're gonna have bad habits. And I think it's just being aware of, oh, this has become a bad habit. Let's fix it, rather than again, like you said before, I am who I am type of deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
No, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I love that we're talking about leadership, and it's so exciting. But also learning is so important in tech because tech is changing so often that you have to learn. But anyway, I don't want to beat the horse. What I want to ask about next is about what's next. That's what I want to ask you about. So, where you're at now, we talked about leadership. We talked about where you're at. What do you know, not right away, but let's say like next 5 years or whatever, like what's the next challenge or what's the next thing that's interesting to you or intriguing you? Like what's the itch?
So that's a really good question. There's certain things that like catch my eye. Like I think you guys saw that I got my
Tommy just wants to
product
just
manager
let everyone know
certificate.
that he got that.
That's
he wants
flex,
to mention that to
flex.
everybody.
Yes. Flex. No, but I'm just like I'm always constantly trying to see like how I can, because I love two things: leadership and I love creativity. I've always been a creative kid. Like when I was when I was a boy, like I was always drawing. I was always like making jokes. That's creativity.
Tell
Like
us
I
about your
tried a
YouTube channel,
YouTube channel.
Tommy.
It didn't work out.
I was his biggest fan. I actually really loved it, and it's still up there. So if you guys are wondering, look up Too Much Teamidz. TOOMUCHTMIDZ. No,
Tahmid's
it's
gonna
worth
kill you
watching.
now.
It's really it's really funny.
Yeah. And then I started a fitness company for 10 days, and then it didn't work out because I had lost the weight, and I was like, oh, I'm a fitness expert.
You're
But it
trying
didn't work out.
things. That's cool.
Yeah, but I just love being. I love being creative. So now, like product, like before, I was like, acting. I would love to be an actor, but now it's like as I've gotten into my career, I love leadership, but how do I marry or bring in creativity into my role, into leadership, right? So I love doing that now in my current role. There's other roles out there that definitely like product development. I love that. I love that stuff, you know. So um, definitely, and there's a lot of product development going on in Edward Jones, and a lot of great stuff happening. So yeah, very interested in that stuff. I just love talking that stuff, product development, customer research, like understanding who you're trying to like intrigue, who you're trying to get. I just think that that's so cool, the whole art of it. And really just you think you know your customer, you think you know your end user, but you really don't sometimes. And I don't know, all that stuff is just really I love that stuff. Next 5 years, next 10 years, I want to open up a coffee shop with my wife. Like
That is so
I love
cute.
That's so
coffee.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, but
Where do you
and
live?
I live in
Phoenix.
San
It's
Valley.
Phoenix. Just say
There's
Phoenix.
nothing
Don't
here.
give
Okay.
us extra
It's
words. He's I
uh,
live in the boonies next to the airport. No,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Phoenix, please.
But yeah, but my wife created. She came up with a cool name. I don't want to say it just in case
Oh
one of the
yeah, you
viewers takes
gotta.
it.
Nope.
Hide it.
Yep.
But I would really, I honestly would. A 10-year plan would be create one and then travel and just taste different coffees, get different coffee beans with her, and then bring it back, and then we just. I would love that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just right now. I'm really focused on career and also my
I
marriage,
love
my
it.
house, and
I love
everything.
that.
So yeah, life.
I love that
It's the
no,
balance,
what I
right?
love though
Yeah,
is it's what
it's
we were talking about
balance.
earlier when we say like, what do you do? I love that he didn't just talk about like work stuff. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm more than just that.
I think it's just like, yeah, it's how people identify, but it was someone had brought that up once to me. It was like when someone asks you what you do or telling me about yourself, so often the first response people give is their job. But if that's how they identify, that's cool.
I was just about to say that.
DTP
I was just
FAQ,
okay. You
Shubho?
read my mind. You read my mind. All right.
Cool.
So
Wait.
Uh,
What did you say?
yeah,
Well,
that's
I
true.
know, that's-
6 letters in a row.
So at the end of every episode, guest episode,
Okay.
we do the Dear Tech Podcast FAQs. So we will ask you a fast 5 questions. We're looking
do
for
it.
like quick responses. If you want to elaborate, totally feel free. But really just like, looking to wrap up and get to know you a little bit better and share some of your insights with our audience. Cool?
Okay, let's do it. I'm down. Let's do it.
Okay. What is the best advice
Woman.
you've ever received from someone?
You don't have to say something. You don't have to use one of my advices. It's okay. You could say someone else's.
Shubho has given me a lot of great.
No, you don't have to use
advice.
mine. You don't
Oh,
have to.
Lord.
But I'm not gonna no, because I'm not gonna use. I'm gonna use just don't try to make yourself. And I know this sounds so cliche, so generic, but again, you guys know my story now. Well, Shubho's been knowing, but Fran, now you know my story, so it does mean a lot more. But don't try to be someone you're not, because again, when I was trying to be in the start of my Scrum career, I was trying to be more. After I realized that my personality wasn't permeating with them, I was like trying to be more serious. I was trying to be more serious, and it just wasn't. It was weird to me. So I remember my leader or one of my mentors was like, "Don't try to be someone you're not. Learn as much as you can, but keep that same spirit. Your spirit is what differentiates you." So I have kept that, like not just that in my career, but also life in general. Like if I feel like I'm being someone I'm not, it's not healthy for me. I got to keep my same spirit. I got to, mental health and everything. So I want to always be true to who I am, because honestly, that's why I married my wife. Like I am who I am, like truly with her. I love you.
So nice.
He's getting as many brownie
I'm
points
dying.
as possible.
I hope she pops in right now.
I wouldn't honestly, knowing their relationship, she's probably standing right in front of him.
That's
just like,
fucking funny.
She might be napping right now. I don't know. She might have not heard that, but
You have to show her this.
yeah, she
stuff
better
when we
she
drop
better
this.
watch it. You guys better watch it
Yeah.
separately. I need the views. Okay. Continue.
What is a favorite quote or saying you have?
I love you.
He's talking to his wife.
No.
He just randomly.
Sorry. She's like, "Are you talking to me? Are you saying?"
I'm not gonna edit that out.
I was like,
dying.
yeah. I
Your
love
favorite
it.
quote.
Sorry. What was that question, Fran? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yep. Favorite quote or saying you have?
Oh, favorite quote was saying.
I'm gonna let you think real quick. I want to say, so when you said best
Man.
advice, Fran, when you asked him that, I'm gonna say this because people should know. Every wedding speech he's ever done, he's given the couple the same advice each time. So I thought he was gonna say that one.
You should
Do it,
share it
Tom.
now.
Do it. This is
What
his.
is it?
Literally,
If you
he's done like 6 or 7 wedding speeches.
That's
Everyone.
everyone.
He beginning is like very, very, very good, and the ending is
Same
always the
cookie
same.
cutter. It must be a good speech if everyone keeps
don't have
asking you
any
to
other
give
options.
it.
Okay. No, and none of the people in the weddings know each other. Like it's always different weddings.
That's
So
so
no,
true.
everyone's like always prepared.
I'm always
Fresh
there. I'm always
content
there.
every time.
Yeah. So the speech. So the line he's talking about is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. I know. Okay. Okay. If I had to
Favorite quote.
favorite quote, putting me on the spot, I'm gonna think of something different. There is no spoon.
Ooh.
The Matrix.
There is no spoon.
There what?
There is no spoon.
You haven't seen the
I
Matrix?
don't know what that
Fran?
means.
That's your homework
Like
for tonight.
15
You have
years
to watch
ago.
the Matrix.
So okay,
Well,
how I interpret
tell us
there
the
is
story,
no
like
spoon.
what
And
the
Shubho,
scene.
you can.
Yeah, like quick
Peanut
version.
Peanut version of what that
Okay,
means.
peanut version. Okay, peanut version is he's waiting for the oracle. Like Neo is waiting to speak to the prophecy teller, right? And he's waiting, and he sees all these kids with powers, and then him just like this kid is like playing with the spoon, and he's bending it with his mind, whatever. And Neo tries it, and he's not able to. Like he's like, it's just a fucking spoon. What are you doing? And the kid goes, the trick to everything is knowing that there is no spoon. So basically, you're creating your
It's
own
the
reality.
Matrix.
Basically,
So, yeah.
your mental capacity, right? Yeah, it's a Matrix. You can do whatever the hell you want. If you want to bend the spoon, there is no spoon.
No, that
right. So I don't know.
I'll be honest.
I know,
That
that was a good
was
one.
I needed
it would
that.
have been
I was
a
like,
little
this
bit better
doesn't go
for
over my
the
head.
reference, but that was actually very deep.
Yeah, sorry.
Fran,
Yeah.
I'm sure I won't be the
no,
only
everyone
listener
watch
who
the
has
Matrix.
no idea
It's a
what the hell
very
that meant.
good. It's a very good dialogue on the idea of like we live in a simulation and everything's science.
Create your own reality.
Anyway, no, it's
Love it.
And I'm not saying the whole Matrix is like, oh, like I know a lot of people
No,
know
no,
like,
no.
oh, life is a simulation. I'm not trying to talk about all that. All I'm saying is that scene right there, the no spoon, to me, I think it's huge. Like sometimes you think of like a blockers in front of you in life or whatever, and it's like you're only making it as big as it can, like as it is. Like and there's always ways around it or ways to be creative, and just knowing
No,
that you're
and
malleable,
every
you're
adversity
water,
is
so.
in your head, right? Like so I'm gonna steal and I know we're wrapping up, but I still gonna say it. You can't worry yourself out of a worry, right? Like if it's something you're worried about, just by you worrying about it, like it's not doing anything. So with the same thing with the spoon,
Good one.
it's all in your head.
That's a good one.
And anyway, we could do this all day,
Yeah.
but we're not gonna. All right.
We could do it. So okay.
You guys can
No,
continue
Tahmid
on.
has plans after this, so he already told me.
Okay. What is the best thing you've ever been gifted?
Birkenstocks.
I will say the best gift, and I'm not at Birkenstocks is number 2 actually. After I broke them,
I bought them for him. That's why we said I bought them. Anyway, continue.
Number 1 gift, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sure she's listening, but my wife last year for my birthday, she got me this. I can't take it off because it's like bolted onto the wall, but she, like 2018. Yeah, 2018, I did a 10K. And that was, so my first 10K was 2017, remember? 2018, the entire year after my first 10K, I kept the fitness. My confidence was through the roof. My diet was even, I've never been more focused and just more sharp in my life, right? When it comes to those factors. In 2018, I was even more driven, and I beat my first year's time by like 11 minutes, which is a big deal to me, right? So I got a medal from it, and I gave her that medal when we were dating, and I was like, this medal means the most to me because it showed me that I pushed myself and whatever. So this means so much to me, and I'm giving it to you, and hopefully I get it back when we get married and live together again.
How cute is this?
Yeah. And so she printed out the picture, and then she has the medal, and it's in like a glass case, like a frame. Fucking, it's so dope. It's so. So I look at it every day, and I'm like, I was so thin, and now I'm just a fat
I
lardo.
was so
It's
that
just-
sounds so
it's
different, but I was so
sweet.
thin.
No, but she's a great gift giver, but that is hands down the best gift.
That's awesome. I love that. Guilty pleasure. What is a guilty pleasure of yours?
Ooh,
Tommy just
guilty
starts singing off the
pleasure,
bat.
guilty
Ooh.
pleasure. Guilty pleasure is guilty pleasure. Like I want to say, like I
Mine's
love.
pie.
I don't know. Wait, what happened?
I said mine's pie.
This is pie. I think for me, I would have to say, I want to say like a Snickers bar. Snickers has
Mm.
always been my favorite. So like when I really need something, when I'm like down or I need something, I need a Snickers bar. Like like I'm being so like that is, and I try not to.
Oh,
Again, like,
isn't Snickers the commercial where is that Snickers where you have to
Happy.
eat it to become
Yeah,
like
you're not yourself. You're not yourself.
like a
You're not yourself
pterodactyl
in
you're
before you
hungry.
eat it, and then
Yeah, that's so
yeah.
That's Tommy.
Okay,
That's my
cool.
guilty pleasure. So I would say that. Yeah.
Love it. Last one. What is one piece of advice you would give someone who is trying to get to where you are?
Oh man. I would have to say if you really got ambitions and goals, if you really want to like do different things and you're not happy with where you are, you gotta put yourself.
Wait, can you say it again?
You got to
got
what?
You gotta put yourself out there.
Mm.
You have to. A lot of people, they have a lot of goals, a lot of like a lot of things that they want to do, but they're either afraid or they don't want to put the work in. Right. I heard a quote the other day from Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and he said, I'm gonna butcher, I'm not even gonna attempt it, but he said basically saying, he said, I know a lot of people who can do something. I know a lot fewer people who are I don't even know why I brought this up. I don't even know the quote anymore. I don't even know the quote. He's like, I know a lot of people who are capable of doing something. I know a lot less people who are willing to put in the work. It's what you're willing to do.
Mm.
That's it. Being capable and willing to do, two different things. So that's the quote. Let me read. So if you edit it, let's read. So
I'm not
Mike
gonna
Tomlin-
edit it.
No, stop, everybody. No, hold up. Stop. Ready? Okay, ready? So I heard a quote the other day. Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and Mike Tomlin. But he said a quote. He said, "I know a lot of people who are capable. I know a lot less fewer people."
I'm not
who are
gonna
willing to do it."
edit it. You're
We're
just
not
gonna say
editing it.
twice.
We're not editing it.
Steelers head coach.
This is what I was scared of.
Steelers head coach.
I told Fran, I was like,
Mike
this interview is tough for me because I have to behave, and it's so hard for me to behave when Tahmid's around. Like I've been really good this interview, but us just laughing and me crying all the time, like that's what we do on a regular basis. But that is great advice.
It's what we do. But I will say,
We're not editing that though.
a lot of our conversations, like Shubho and I, like will be if there was a fly on the wall or if there was a camera, about 85 to 95% of it, it's almost like I don't even think the Pentagon would be able to decode it. Like
That's
it
so
makes
true.
no sense. We speak a different like 5% of the conversations, almost every conversation, there's a gem.
But the
We
rest
learn
of it is
something.
literally
I always learn
gibberish.
something. He learns something. Like there's no Morse code that is more difficult than our language. But I would say if you really want to get to where you are and you've got those goals and ambition, whatever it is, it can be whatever. You gotta be like, okay, I'm capable, but what am I willing to do to get there? Right. So that's my biggest advice.
Love that.
That was awesome. I think that
Wow.
rings
All right.
true.
Well,
Thank you.
Tahmid, we're just about to wrap up. Is there anything you want to add? Any final things? Do you want to give us the URL for a YouTube page or?
No, no. But I will say, I appreciate you guys for having me on. This was a great time. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Seriously, this is continuously growing, and I love the topics that you guys talk about. And I know it's helpful for me, so I know it's helpful for a lot of other people. So keep on keeping on, and yeah, appreciate you both. Seriously.
Thank you so much, Tahmid. It was awesome to have you on, and I loved hearing about your trajectory and all the shit
Thank
you and
you.
Shubho
You
got
haven't
into.
heard the half of it. No, this is great.
Yeah.
And
Next time.
probably never. I don't think we should ever talk about that stuff. Yeah. me and Tom have known each other for over a decade. There's way too much in there. But thank you. Yeah, this was fun, and hope to have you back on here when you have your coffee shop. We can talk about that too, even though it's not tech, but we'll figure it out.
Yes.